There's something about performing music, at least when you're performing it in a group situation with other musicians, that you really know when you're locked in and when you aren't. And when you aren't, it can be a very subtle thing or it could be a very obvious thing. But you have to feel that. And if you're performing with someone who doesn't feel that, you know it immediately. It's a very obvious thing. And maybe in some ways it gets at the area of talent, where you have to have some of that to be in our field. And you can't teach all of it. You can help in many ways to have a lot of craft to help you so that when you're in that performing situation with a group where you have the opportunity to feel something really great, you have enough technique to be able to enjoy it. But in order to actually feel it physically, that's a combination of a talent and an instinct thing and a vitally important thing in group playing. Having played for, well, I'm not going to tell you exactly how many years I've played, but many, many, many years of playing group music in one capacity or another, and in my case as a pianist, either as an accompanist for a singer, as a contributor to a group in a supportive role, or as a soloist, I still am constantly learning about when each one of my notes falls in the right place so that it feels good. And I know when it feels good, and I know when it feels bad. It feels bad if I get a little bit ahead. It feels bad if I get a little bit behind. And I'm constantly working on that, constantly working on every note that I play and how it relates to every note that everybody else is playing that's around me.
I think taste and feel are something that we all collectively, as performer, listener, appreciator, have to agree upon. For me to think I'm playing the tastiest lick right now and have you as a listener disagree with me negates the fact that that possibly was a tasty lick. I think, and the same is with feel. If music feels good to the performers, there's a greater chance for it to feel good to the listener. So I think it starts with the unit, whether it's me just playing. If it's in the pocket and it makes you want to move a little bit, it probably feels pretty good, and there's a good chance I can get to you if I'm playing it with a good feel.
You know, there's a lot of different styles, and there are those players that can be really, really funky and really fancy. But for me, it's about just a solid player. Then you can add a little spice when you need to add spice, but for the most part, for commercial music, it's not about being as fancy as you can. It's about being as tasteful and just, you know, straight, solid player. Over the years, I've gotten kind of spoiled because I'll get with guys that kind of know what I want and they can go right to it. And then every now and then, if you get a bass player in that has like no clue and it's going a whole nother way, you almost forget how to produce anymore. You just like, it's not that you forget how to produce, it's like you start to say, you know what, that's okay. Or you like say, okay, let's get it done. I had one really famous bass player, which I will not mention names, but that came in, I was really excited about working with, and he had no clue. And I was so amazed that I was like, did you really play on all these songs before? And but it's just that it was a different kind of thing that he was used to. And so I think the real key, the main thing I look for in any bass player is do they bring something, do they understand the song? And then you also want them to bring something a little more, to bring their own ideas and their own identity to it as well, if that's possible.
When I put a song together and bring the unit into a room, I require two things. If I have to have a choice, I'll tell you what they are. One, that they can read it. Two, they can feel it. If I had a choice between a bass player who is a great reader versus a great feeler, I'd rather go for the feeler. Because a lot of times, the notes can be ever so correct, but the feeling's not there. And if you get a wonderful bass player, in the case of Nathan, for example, he's both. There are days when he'll play in between, and then some days, even though the notes are written, he'll lay out, he'll interpret, because the drummer didn't play exactly that, but they're feeling off of each other. So again, what's to paper is not written in stone. To me, more so, it's the person who actually can feel the unit that makes it work the best for me. Because then you'll get, if you will, a higher state of what your song was supposed to be. Sometimes what the musicians bring to the table in their individuality is better than what I thought of all by myself, let's say, just thinking of how the bass was going to fall. The bass player feeling it with the drummer, with the guitar player, with the keyboard player is just the best. I always remember the phrase that was said in so many of my recording sessions. It's not how much you play, it's how much you don't know when not to play. That's the first line. And second rule that I picked up from Nathan was I wanted to put my rhythm section together that I thought were a great group of guys, musicians. And I remember calling off some names. And Nathan was shaking his head. He said, "You've got everybody right but one." And I said, "Well, just play with him, because I think this is the right kind of way." So he said he doesn't understand. And I couldn't figure out what he's talking about. What do you mean doesn't understand? He can read music. He said, no, he has to be able to play with the rest of the unit. And of course, I brought my guy in, and we couldn't get it right to save our lives. And Nathan said, now we'll get the right drummer in. And the first pass was a complete take. And he said, he understands. In other words, the bass player and the drummer have got to be locked together. If you've got any conflict there, you can have the best song in the world, it will not fly. And that was my two rules of Nathan East. Third thing is to have fun.